Okay. We'll call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. I know that Trustee Gorski will be arriving. Can we have a roll call, please?
Cudilla.
Here.
Kennedy here. Michaels. Here. Soltow.
Here.
Trojan.
Here.
We have enough for a quorum.
I do not believe we have any members other than physical presence. Do we have any communications and petitions?
No, we do not.
None? Do we have any visitors other than those that are making presentations?
I don't believe we do.
We don't have any. Okay, resolution honoring Roland Chip Chapdelaine. I'm sure you all read that. Would just like to acknowledge former trustee, long-standing trustee Randy Schaefer did acknowledge this resolution and was pleased with it. It turns out that Randy was on the search committee when Chip Chapdelaine was selected, and he was also on the board at the time of Mr. Chapdelaine's resignation. So it is being watched and is appreciated. Any comments? Hearing none, we'll go on to the review of minutes from January 14th, Committee of the Whole. Any comments, corrections, changes, additions, deletions? Hearing none. We will now go to the general presentations. The first one being 2025 board update. Bond update, sorry.
So Tammy Schemmel from PMA is back once again. She's going to provide you an update financing plan for our capital projects, specifically our downtown west.
Thank you very much. You may recall we had an opportunity to speak back in August, so this is really an update as it relates to the next wave of your financing plan, as Ellen mentioned, for the downtown project. So we'll just get right into the presentation, and please, obviously, if you have questions along the way, stop me at any time. So just a review first of the college's existing debt service on bonds that are tied to the tax levy. So if you see the yellow line going across, that represents debt service payments that you're making in the current fiscal year 25, and they total just under $12 million, and against your EAV of over $7.8 billion, the bond and interest tax rate of the college for that year is about 15 cents. There's a light green column shaded in the middle, and that represents the bonds that you sold in late 2024. That was the first wave of the financing plan we talked about last summer. And with that plan, we had intended to bring up the debt service payment from about $12 million in fiscal year 25, or levy year 23, to about $14.5 million in levy year 24, what would be the upcoming fiscal year 26. And with that, with a conservative assumption that the EAV, or equalized assessed value of the college, would grow by 2%. You can see that that tax rate in light green on the right-hand side would increase to about 18 cents. So if your EAV grows at a faster rate than 2%, that tax rate will be something lower. But that's what you have right now. And those remaining levy amounts in that green column from that bond issue in late 24 were structured in a way to allow for this next financing related to the downtown project. And here's a bar graph view of the same information on the prior slide. So again, there's an arrow pointing to levy year 24, which brings up that debt service payment from about $12 million to $14.5 million. And then you can see the bars drop off. There's more room in subsequent years to allow for the next financing. When we talked last summer, we considered some of the important variables as the college was contemplating issuing some debt for these projects. We talked about arbitrage rebate and your construction draw schedule, which we'll come back to in a second, as well as just being mindful of bond market conditions and interest rate risk, which ultimately help us give you a recommendation on the number of bond issues and when those bond issues should be sold. So we're going to touch on these things again this afternoon. So again, the projects that you have on deck, so to speak, we already financed the $14.7 million for the Classroom 2 building and the Health Sciences Center that we just talked about a couple minutes ago. And now we have the downtown Rockford facility, which is approximately $52 million. And that will be a two-step financing approach, an approach that the college has gone through many, many times in the past when it's financed capital projects. So it would be debt certificates to funding bonds. So let's just a high-level review of arbitrage. So we talked about this last summer, and we reminded ourselves that arbitrage speaks to the amount of interest that you're earning on your bond proceeds versus what you're paying, right? So when you sell tax-exempt bonds, the federal government says you have to do an arbitrage yield calculation, okay? And then that yield then restricts the rate of interest you can earn on your proceeds from your sale over the life of the project. You obviously aren't going to spend $52 million in one day. It's going to take several months to take care of your project. So anything that you earn at a rate above what the stated arbitrage yield is on your sale, any interest earned above that rate, the federal government calls that arbitrage, okay, that positive arbitrage. And do you have to rebate it? So anything that's above that, that rebate is what you may have to return to the federal government, okay? So in effect, you would earn more than the government says that you're allowed to. But there are exceptions to rebate. One of them is what's called a small issuer exception, and the other one are spend down exceptions. So over the life of the project, you can have certain spending targets. We'll talk about that in a second. But you can earn, while you're working on your projects, getting them built, you can earn at a rate above that while they're happening. And then at the end, if there's some sort of arbitrage rebate that's due, then you pay that back to the federal government. There is, as I mentioned, this small issuer exception, which means that you can generate up to $15 million of tax-exempt debt in a calendar year. You can earn as much interest as you want on those proceeds. So with the sale last fall, that was $14.7 million of proceeds. You fit within that $15 million limit, and that was by design. So you can earn as much interest as you want because you generated less than $15 million in that calendar year.
So question, do we know how much we've earned or will earn on that 14.7?
We'll be watching it, but most of that 15 or that $14.7 million is in a trust account with CDB. So that's going to be probably invested into money markets,
Into what?
money market funds.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So I mentioned there are also spend down exceptions, and this is what comes into play when we think about the roughly $52 million you need to finance for the downtown Rockford project. So essentially the government's trying to motivate you to spend the proceeds as quickly as you can. There are either 6-month, 18-month, or 24-month spending exceptions. 6-month obviously would be a challenge given the scope of the project, and 18 months would be a challenge potentially, but you'll see in a minute that a 24-month spend down is probably very doable based on the draw schedule for your project. And you can see for each exception there are spending benchmarks along the way. And it is important to note, you have to meet every single benchmark. So for example, that 2-year exemption, you can't hit the 6-month and the 12-month, miss the 18-month, and then hit the 24-month and satisfy the exception requirements. You have to meet all 4 of them. It's important to know. So based on the draw schedule that has been provided to us, we understand that the downtown facility will likely be completed by October of 2026. And based on the preliminary draw schedule, it does look like the college should be able to meet every spending exception benchmark in that period of time. So I've listed for you at the bottom, what would the required spending targets be? What would the estimate on what you would actually spend for each of those benchmarks? You see that you exceed every one of them. So that's important when we then look at how might you then issue all these proceeds for your project. So we have 2 scenarios under scenario 1. Both of them assume that you would generate all of the proceeds in one sale sometime in 2025. Scenario 1A assumes that you would generate the debt certificate proceeds in April of this year and then pay them off with the funding bonds in August of this year. Scenario 1B pushes everything back by 4 months. So what if we waited? And I'm going to be able to quantify for you in a minute what's the interest rate risk by doing that. Maybe you think, well, interest rates might be lower at some point if we don't need the money from the proceeds right away because we've got some other cash that we can use to help fund some of the work for a while. Maybe we should consider that. So those are the first two scenarios under scenario 1. And then in scenario 2, we do break it down, though, and we said, okay, well, what if we only generate just under $38 million of the proceeds in April of '25, followed by the funding bonds in August, and then we do the balance. We issue the debt certificates in March of '26, and then pay them off with funding bonds about 4 months later. And we're targeting to be under the $15 million with that second piece in 2026. That's by design. So let me talk for a minute about what's been going on in interest rates. And we hear lots of things impacting interest rates right now. This is a view. I think we've looked at this graph together before, but the gray shaded area is showing you what the Fed has done with short-term interest rates for the last year or so. The different colored lines represent different points on the yield curve for what's called the Municipal Market Data Index, or the MMD. So as a community college issuing federally tax-exempt bonds, your bonds are going to sell at a spread to what that index is doing, and that index changes every single day. So this gives you a year view of this, and I gave you a few benchmarks in that blue call-out box on the right-hand side so you can see where rates have been. And even if we updated that 5-year rate today, we would be lower than the 277 that's listed there as of January 31st, because we have had some market improvement. The tone has been very positive. Now, there are several things influencing the bond market, like there are lots of things influencing the markets in general right now. So there have been conversations, ongoing conversations about a new president, and some of his policies may be inflationary. For example, conversations about tariffs. The markets from day to day are trying to figure out how to respond to that. What does that really mean? How serious is it? There's talk about implementing them, and then there's a delay, and then there's another conversation. The markets are just trying to absorb all of it as quickly as they can. So that may be putting pressure on tax-exempt rates in the short and longer term. But things that have been working in the favor of the index and for the college and keeping rates down is when things like the CPI come out, or employment data, other things that we're watching very closely from month to month. So the January CPI comes out tomorrow, so that will be important for the bond market. But when there are things like those, like the CPI or the employment reports that sort of might be at odds with what the news about potential tariffs or other things that could be inflationary in the market, those things may kind of keep each other in check. But for you all as trustees thinking about entering into a financing here in relatively short order, from an historical point of view, the bond market is very, very strong. It is somewhat higher than what that 20-plus year average has been, but you are not out of the ballpark by any stretch. And the tone has been strong. There's a lot of demand for Illinois paper, as we say, a lot of investor interest in tax-exempt bonds. And remember, too, when there are concerns about other things, uncertainty in the markets, there tends to be an investor flight to quality and safety, which is what municipal bonds are. So I just wanted to give you kind of that 30,000-foot overview. So when you think about what should your plan be, I have a summary page here of the scenarios that I just walked you through. So again, scenario 1A issues all of the debt certificates in April, and then they're turned around and paid off with the funding bonds in August. Scenario 1B is the same scenario, but it pushes things back by 4 months. And then scenario 2 assumes you issue almost $38 million in April of this year, followed by the funding bonds, with the balance about a year later. So we assumed in this analysis that interest rates stay the same, and there's a reason that we do that, so we can tell you what that break even really is, what that looks like. So for example, in scenario 1A, the estimated debt service cost to the college would be about $62.5 million. In scenario 1B, it's about $61.7 million. So yes, you would think it would be less expensive from a borrowing point of view if we assume interest rates are the same, just from time value of money. But look at the difference in the estimated interest earnings, which again, we're assuming you'll meet all those spending exceptions, which I know Ellen will monitor closely. But the difference in the interest earnings is over $600,000 more in scenario 1A. So the net difference between the two, $60.74 million versus almost $60.56 million, is very small. And the break even between scenarios 1A and 1B, meaning how much would rates have to go up between April of this year and August of this year for the college to be better off selling all of the proceeds in April is only 7 basis points, 0.07%. So with some of the things that are going on that I talked about that may cause up and downs in the market, 7 basis points is not much movement at all. Okay?
Much difference between the three.
I beg your pardon?
Not much difference between the three.
That's true, yes. So when you take it to scenario 2, see how close that is? But what's compelling, I think, for you to think about is the difference in the estimated interest earnings is almost $1 million between scenario 1A and scenario 2. And for that reason, PMA does recommend that you proceed with scenario 1A.
That's what you're recommending?
Yes. And that was, if you recall, back in August, at that point, based on the analysis, I said that was our recommendation at that time, but we wanted to be able to come back to you, see what happened in the market over the next several months, and give you a fresh perspective. So we've done that, but our recommendation is still the same because the math, if you will, really comes out very, very similar to where it was last August. Okay, so these are just bar graphs for each of the 3 scenarios. I'll go through these kind of quickly, but what you'll see is in each of them, they're all bringing that total debt service payment of the college on an annual basis up to the $14.5 million amount through levy year 2030. And then in 2031, the bar is smaller, much shorter. And it just depends on which scenario you look at, how much shorter that bar is. So this doesn't factor in the interest earnings, it's just looking at the debt service cost, but they're all essentially the same. So the last part of the presentation I have for you tonight is to just go over the upcoming timeline. And I know there's a lot of details here, but we wanted to put on one page for you all to see all the steps that have to happen. So those of you who've been through this process before, maybe recall that there are several steps that the Board of Trustees has to undertake here. So we would, with your blessing, be prepared to bring you 2 things on February 25th. And one is adoption of a parameters resolution for the sale of the debt certificates and an approval for the selection of what's called a placement agent for those debt certificates. So that would be a firm that would help us identify purchasers for the sale of the debt certificates. And we are having an RFP, or request for proposals, out on the street as we speak to get feedback on that, so I'll have a recommendation ready for that board meeting. And then from there, things flow to get your debt certificates sold in April, as we talked about a few slides ago, close on that transaction, and then start the process to issue the funding bonds right after that, and then that transaction would move into closing in August. So a lot of behind-the-scenes things need to happen, but just wanted you to see this high-level timeline for tonight.
So in a nutshell, 1A gives us $1 million more in interest than the other 3. Otherwise, the total debt service between the 3 are pretty much even, Stephen.
Pretty close, yes.
So it's $1 million in our favor with
Yes.
1A.
Yes,
And the payout schedule is the same no matter what.
yes.
So it seems to me that's the way to go, just like you're recommending.
Yes.
Any question, Paul?
Yeah, if the payout is the same, where's the benefit of the mill?
Well, the debt service cost, if you look at that 4th line, estimated net debt service cost with the footnote 1 next to it, I mean, you can see that the total debt service cost is going to be somewhat higher in scenarios 1A and 1B, right? You see that? So then the interest earnings analysis becomes a really, really important part of the discussion. So because you will have the highest interest earnings in scenario 1A, when we subtract that from the borrowing cost that was in the line above it, then you do see that really, as Trustee Trojan mentioned, the difference in that bolded line, you can see it's a difference of roughly $100,000 to $200,000 between each one. The main point here is to help the college earn as much interest earnings as possible on the proceeds
Anywhere
that
from
you
$1 million
use for
to
the project or
700,
other
600.
purposes.
Anywhere from 600 on 1B to almost $1 million on
Yes.
number 2.
Right,
Better
yeah.
than 1A.
Yeah, just looking at the summary, just the bottom line isn't the bottom line. The bottom line is actually in the middle of the chart, and I just would have kind of done it a little differently, so.
Well, the bottom line, the debt service is one line.
Right.
But then you get the interest, which is on top of that.
Right.
Or another way to put it is if you subtracted the debt, if you subtracted the earnings out from the debt service, then the difference really stands out
Yeah,
for
right.
1A.
Right, yeah. And that's why we want to show it to you both ways.
Right, no, that's
But
good.
it is important to be mindful of those variables, too.
Okay, any other questions? Well, I would say you have a go-ahead. Let's get the next level of paperwork going.
Okay, so then at the February board meeting, we'll be bringing to the board a parameters resolution for the sale of the 2025A debt certificates, and also for approval for the recommendation of the placement agent.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
follow the plan. Thank you very much. Good presentation.
Thank you,
Good
Tammy.
numbers.
Good job.
Okay, now we have Foundation, Brittany Freiberg.
Bless you.
Talk about the Downtown West fundraising plan.
Good evening, trustees and cabinet members.
Good evening.
Hello.
So much like you, our foundation team and our board of directors are very excited about the hope, growth, and opportunity that we believe Downtown West will bring to our region. In support of the newest campus, we have been asked to launch a fundraising campaign to raise critical support, which we believe will not only help our students through that campus, but just create additional access, opportunity, and growth within our region. As you may know, roughly 60% of our students rely on financial aid or scholarships to afford their education at RVC. In the foundation, we believe that education should not be a privilege for some, but should be an opportunity for all. And so I think you'll see that resonate throughout this RVC Downtown West campaign, because we are directing or asking donors to direct 100% of their gifts to student scholarships to do just that, create access and opportunity. Before we go out and ask any donors to consider supporting us financially, we always want to do our due diligence within the foundation and make sure that we can tie our financial asks to a true statement of need that is demonstrated throughout our community. And we do believe that that need exists. So on this slide, you can see regional data that supports 42% of our residents in Winnebago, Boone, and Ogle counties have a high school diploma or less. Only 33% of residents hold an associate's degree or higher. So again, we do believe that there's an educational gap there, but as you'll see, we also believe that access is probably one of the biggest stumbling blocks in narrowing that divide. So I'm happy to announce that we are embarking on a $2.5 million campaign, again, centered around student scholarships and creating access and opportunity for all students who want to pursue a brighter future through Rock Valley College. We also believe that developing and constructing the newest campus is step one, but step two is ensuring our students can afford to attend and pursue their dreams here. Through Downtown West, we believe that there's great opportunity and visible naming opportunities throughout the two buildings. So on the next slide, I'll kind of walk you through what those price points that we've identified look like. But we're hoping that having naming opportunities available will inspire our donors to give at a major gift level, because they want to see their name, either their family name or their corporate name, proudly displayed throughout Downtown West. So we've broken tonight's presentation up into the two buildings. So right now you're looking at the giving levels for Downtown Learning Center, and they range from $500,000, and that is for the Community Engagement Center. Why you see them jump from $75,000 to $500,000 is because we think that 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 community engagement center will have the greatest foot traffic throughout the years of that building. We're hopeful that other nonprofits, not just Rock Valley, but other organizations want to host events there. We believe so many people will walk in and out of that building. So we have valued it at a much greater level than you may see on a general classroom. You can see there we also have 4 general classrooms available. All of these price points are consistent with past campaigns when looking at engineering our future in the Woodward Tech Center and also the ATC and RVC Strong campaign. When looking at the training center, again, we have one level at the $500,000. We have based that on square footage and estimated foot traffic within the automotive technology lab, and then they scale down from there. So we have giving ranges from $50,000 all the way up to $500,000. For your consideration tonight, I have been asked to ask you to consider allowing the college to have two $2 million opportunities available to display a donor's name on the exterior of both buildings. What that would look like is $2 million paid over 10 years. So it would be a revenue stream of $200,000 a year for 10 years. At the end of those 10 years, that donor has the opportunity to have the first response, first right of refusal to keep their name up. Otherwise, it would come down, and we'd have the opportunity to seek out another donor.
I guess the board would have to think about that part, certainly, but also, for example, the Woodward Technology Center, that name has been up there forever, right?
It has.
So why would this one here only limit it to 10 years?
That's a great question. And so what we have seen probably within the last 10 years in the nonprofit world is a lot of those high-level naming opportunities have a time limit on them now. Instead of saying in perpetuity, it's just an opportunity to have continued revenue coming in.
Well, it's like the baseball stadiums, that's what they do.
Right.
They get a 10-year line, then they change.
Yeah,
Paul?
that's what I was going to say, not only the nonprofit, but the for-profit.
Professional sports.
They put a limit on, and it's not upfront, but it's just an annual marketing advertising cost that they can roll into their, if it's a corporate entity,
Right.
you know, their finances, so.
At any rate, we will have to have separate discussion about $2 million naming rights, presumably for a person or an organization. What was your thought?
It could be either.
Could be either.
In our market, I would probably believe that it would skew more on the corporate side. If it is an individual, I feel like that may be a harder sell because I don't know that they might want to do a $2 million gift as a lasting legacy. For them to know that their name is going to come down at the end of 10 years, that's a little bit of a different conversation than if I go to, and I'm just going to throw out UW Health. Going to them, they have marketing dollars that they will tend to use for something like this. It's easier to then take a corporate name down after 10 years than an individual.
Paul?
I agree, and if I missed that meeting when we're talking about it, I'm all for it. I don't have any problem with it, you know.
You're all for naming rights?
The naming rights, quite frankly, I can't think of the name of any building I've been in anywhere, or even stadium, but if somebody wants to give us money to do that, I'm all good with it, you know.
Well, back up. What is the total amount of the non-naming rights sheets with all the individual classrooms and whatever down the training center? What do all those numbers add up? Would that be $2.5 million?
Yes. If I secured
Be a lot easier,
all of
though,
them,
if you get a
it would be
$2 million
2.5.
One time, right? I understand. What?
2.5 or just under, because we do
Just under 2.5.
expect some individuals like myself who can't name a classroom, but I will financially support that campaign.
So to simplify, this is the hard way to get it, and the other way is the easy way to get it. You get one guy, one organization to give you $2 million, you're there.
We're good.
Correct.
Well, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you're going to get, for the smaller amounts, you're getting that up front.
For the smaller amounts, donors typically have up to 5 years to pay off the pledge.
Okay. So mostly, you're getting it at the front end, and the other one's just distributed over a longer period of time.
Correct.
I mean, it's a nice deal for them because they can, disperse the money over a longer period, and it's good for us because we've got a predictable revenue stream.
No? I was going to ask something else. Oh, on the naming rights for the classrooms and training centers, what's the life on those?
On those, what we typically have said is for the lifetime of the intended purpose of that building.
Lifetime of the building
Intended purpose.
or the training center? If we decided to move the training center somewhere else in 5 years, would the name go with it or stay?
It could. So those would be conversations that I would have to have with the donor. For example, one named room has moved out of the WTC, and some of the equipment went to the ATC. That was a conversation that I had to have with the donor to say, do you want your name to stay there or to follow?
Yeah, what I don't know is whether our board needs to get involved with all the nuances of the naming rights and so on.
I don't think so, but as I was thinking of Joe, he was looking right at me. So just keep us abreast of the devil and the details, that's all. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Okay, go on with your...
So then I think my last slide, I just want to highlight what a potential named room sign will look like in that facility. So before the Advanced Technology Center, most of our named room signs had a small brushed aluminum plate that just said, this room donated by, I'm just going to look at Bob because I'm looking at it, sorry, Trustee Trojan. This room dedicated by Trustee Trojan. We took a different stance with the ATC because we knew that most of the donors who were going to put their name in there were going to be future employers of our students. We want to carry that practice into Downtown West. So this is an example of a plaque that hangs in the ATC outside of our CNC machining lab. The students every day when they walk into that classroom can scan that QR code and it takes them directly to AME's hiring opportunities. The words that you see displayed there also embody their core values of each company. So we try to make our naming opportunities, especially at the corporate level, a two-way engagement so that there is something in it for the donors after they make that initial gift. I want to drive students to them that might be interested in working for them. My hope is that that's a great incentive, especially when we look at the training center for Downtown West that will have automotive, I don't know about criminal justice, but that will definitely, I can see it heavily on the automotive side. That organizations will want their name displayed there because they want to be a competitor in that employer market.
I like that idea.
So I have another question. Yeah. So I know that in the past years, we keep increasing the amount of scholarship money available, but we never seem to give it all away. What would you do differently going forward if you now get another $2.5 million on top of what you're already generating? How do you help make sure you give it away, or award it, I should say?
We typically give away every dollar outside of those that are tied to either engineering. Music is a hard one for us. We don't have a very robust music program, but we have a lot of scholarship dollars. I don't foresee us bringing in a lot of scholarship funds within this campaign that we have a hard time awarding. And whenever I meet with a donor to establish their criteria, I'm very honest with them. If they start going down a path that's going to take their applicant pool from here to here, I'll tell them that with what you're choosing, it's going to be really hard for us to award it. Would you consider this? And so I really believe that we'll be able to secure funds that we can give away.
Hey, Paul?
Did you? No. I was just going to say, you said that you asked the question I wanted to, but much more nicely, I think. Because Bob comes to us and says, there's these amount of dollars that are still essentially left on the table, and they're still trying to do, and maybe he's speaking just about, engineering dollars or something like that, since I guess one, since some of this is automotive and the like, it's not engineering, but you don't see any problem with scholarship money going into those programs going unused in a...
I do not.
Okay.
And we have great partnerships with the automotive faculty right now, where we constantly are in communication. If we're lagging in their pools, their automotive student application pools, we'll send out an email, and within a couple days, there are students that have applied that he's encouraged.
Okay.
With engineering, I just want to give you a little bit of insight. The largest pool of money in terms of engineering scholarships is through Woodward Charitable Trust. The minimum GPA is a 3.0. And sadly enough, we don't have enough engineering students with a 3.0 or above applying. That is our biggest stumbling block. We've asked them multiple times if they would lower that criteria from a 3.0 to a 2.8, and I've been told no. I have someone on the Charitable Trust Board that's advocating for me, and I put a proposal in writing for them again this January to ask them to consider lowering it to a 2.8 so that we can award their scholarships. So it's not that it's a widespread problem, it's just really one large pool of money that we struggle to give away.
I don't think that's the first time she's mentioned that to us either. So maybe even just a percentage of the money that they've contributed for a lower GPA, not the whole pool, just to get a few more people through the program to give them an opportunity to excel. So, and if they see higher graduation success rates and job placement rates for that, maybe then they'll be inspired to allow a larger amount of funds to be used at that GPA level.
Right.
So.
Good point. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
I have a short one.
Yes.
What is the average size of these signs that will be posted?
Yeah. I'm not good on estimating, so I don't know. What is this, 10?
That's about like that.
They're a little bit bigger than that. I can get dimensions.
I was just curious because they could be little
They're
bigger.
big enough, you could read it.
Yeah.
Any other
All right.
questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brittany. What's your next step now with your board with this program?
I hit the ground running.
You what?
I hit the ground running.
Okay.
Unless you had any issues or any stumbling blocks that you wanted us to think through, my board is on board.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I think the board needs to decide whether we will allow a naming right for a building outside.
Correct.
And not all the board members are here. So I think we'll have to defer that decision until we have our own discussion.
Well, we're not even voting tonight anyway, but...
No, we're not voting tonight, I know, but John and Kristen are not
Right,
here. And
right.
I know we talked about it briefly at another board meeting, and it is what we think is a board decision. to
Well,
say-
if John argues about it, just remind him that he keeps on saying we need more scholarship dollars. So there you go.
There you go, yeah, you never know, so, okay. But probably at the February meeting, I suppose, I don't know.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much,
All right.
Brittany.
Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you. Good job.
Okay, now on to teaching and learning. Trustee Simpson's not here, so we'll go straight into the enrollment update.
Good evening, trustees.
Good evening.
There has not been much change since the report that's in your packet, but we have had our 12-week courses start. We're still 17% ahead of the budget for spring, and we're now 11% ahead of the stretch goal for spring. I do want to say, I think it's important to point out, though, that we're currently at we've already exceeded our budget goal for the entire fiscal year.
Right.
So, I don't anticipate any issue, especially with having summer still coming, and we're very near our stretch goal for the entire fiscal year. So I think that's worth pointing out and commending our enrollment staff and our academic affairs staff as well.
Well, what also should be pointed out is you're also, for the whole year, running ahead of fiscal year '24 for the whole year.
Correct.
So comparing to stretch goal or budget, that's one thing, but actual to actual, you're running ahead, and I think that's very commendable.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
And I hope you get more engineering students.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Heather.
Next item? Sorry,
Dr.
re-up?
Pryor.
The re-up. Sorry.
Bless you.
Good evening. This is in your board packet this evening for review. Last month, I was able to present to the board some information about an organization called Re-Up Education. We are looking at a partnership agreement with them for a 4-year agreement, of which they would help us to try to reach out to former students who have not completed their degree or certificate, whether here or outside of Rock Valley College, if they've not been enrolled for more than 2 years, and as far out as 20 years or so, that this organization would reach out to those students on our behalf and work with them to try to help them re-enroll at Rock Valley College. For that service, they would charge Rock Valley College a fee of 30%. And if they get a consortium together that they're still working on, there's still about 15 schools that the organization is working with. They need 5. Once they reach that critical mass of 5 organizations, institutions, Illinois Community College schools, other community colleges in the state of Illinois, that rate would go from 30% down to 27%, saving us probably on that projection that they gave us was over the course of the 4 to 5 year agreement, around $750,000 would be their fee at 30% of a roughly $2.5 million returned revenue in tuition dollars to the institution. That fee of 30% would be about $750,000. At 27%, that drops to about $675,000 or so over the course of those 4 or 5 years. So it is a significant portion of that tuition dollar, yes. But I don't believe we would see very few of those students would return on their own without this level of support. So this does need to be board approved in terms of a contract agreement. And that would come to you at the end of the month.
Any questions?
Sounds good.
Rita? No?
I like it.
Thanks.
Okay,
Dr.
thank you
Pryor.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pryor.
There's an informational item here, faculty tenure. Any questions?
I did want to mention that we will be inviting the members that are achieving tenure at our February Board of Trustees meeting, and we will be inviting you all, along with them, to a small reception directly preceding, so that there's an opportunity for them to meet our illustrious Board of Trustee members, and you will have a chance to meet our new faculty members. We're excited. We have 14 that will be joining us as tenured faculty in the fall.
Sounds good.
Nice.
Very good. Okay, moving on to the finance area. Paul, you're...
And Ellen, you're up. And I'm going to ask you a question on our discussion on Purchase Report A, Item F, when you get to it.
All right, at least that's the last one.
Yep.
All right, Purchase Report A is FY25 purchases. First up, we have Alpha Controls and Service LLC for $37,100. That is a not to exceed. This is for the service, repairs, parts, and maintenance on the multi-stack heat pumps for the college's heating and cooling system. Typically, this expense does not exceed $25,000 in a fiscal year. However, due to a leak in chiller number 3 and the resulting loss of 560 pounds of refrigerant, that has increased our anticipated annual cost for these services.
What's the closing?
Item B is Johnson Controls for $302,000. This is a not to exceed. This expense is for the upgrade to the existing extended application and data server for the JCI Metasys head-end system and the old network controllers. This upgrade is needed to ensure that the head end can communicate with the new HVAC equipment that will be installed in the downtown West campus. Johnson Controls is the sole proprietor of the Metasys system. Item C is for Kruger International, $50,000. This expense is for furniture for the student life space located in the Stenstrom Student Center. Some of the furniture in the student lounge and the student government offices has become damaged and worn over the 21 years and needs to be replaced. Kruger International, or KI, provides the college's current standard for lounge furniture in the SSC. Item
Sorry, this is back on B. So you're not having a vendor do the upgrade with Johnson Controls technology, or Johnson Controls is doing the upgrade?
Johnson Controls is doing the upgrade on item B.
Okay.
On the Metasys system?
Yeah, that'd be the first I ever heard of that. I mean, I'm familiar with the Metasys system, and they usually have a vendor working with them and then not doing it. Okay, that's fine.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, for the furniture, what do we do with the old furniture? Do we sell it? Do we give it away? Do we have a garage sale?
Oftentimes, the furniture that we replace, because we use it well, is usually not, it doesn't bode well to be resold or to even be given away. So a lot of it ends up just being disposed of or recycled. If it is something that's usable or potentially could be sold to someone, we usually do that on
Gov Deals.
Thank you, Gov Deals, and put it out there. If we get any people who want it off of the Gov Deals, we'll sell it to them. Otherwise, typically, if it doesn't sell on Gov Deals, we scrap it out.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Questions? Okay.
Oh, what type of furniture is being replaced? Just regular furniture, or anything specific, or?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't have all the details of the individual pieces. There is a listing of that available that the Dean of Students Office, the Student Life Office, and the Student Activities Office have all been collaborating on this review of the furniture pieces. So the Student Lounge on the first floor Student Center, which has the pinball machines, and so we'd be getting some soft seating, some newer tables, some newer chairs, and then also in the Student Club Room, the Student Government Offices, that furniture, that couch needs to go. That's not something we're going to give to somebody else. I think it just needs to go straight to the dumpster. But some other pieces are just nicer, softer seating, comfortable, newer chairs, those types of equipment pieces.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right, moving on.
Okay.
Item D is Testing Service Corporation, $70,000 not to exceed. This is for testing services for the downtown West campus. This work includes the observation and testing of soils, concrete, and other aggregate materials, and backfill placed and compacted in excavations as a result of the demolition of the former buildings at that site. Testing Service Corporation will provide field work, laboratory services, consultation, and report preparation throughout the work. This is exempt from bid under the Illinois state statutes under Exemption A, contracts for the service of individuals possessing a high degree of professional skill where the ability or fitness of the individual plays the most important part. Item E is a to be determined. This expense is for the first of a three-phase project to replace the entirety of the architectural lighting in the BST. Phase 1 will replace elements of the lighting system that are failing. Bid 2502 BST LED lighting upgrade Phase 1 will be open on February 11th. 2025, and a recommendation will be brought to the February 25th, 2025 board in order for the work to be completed prior to the start of the 2025 performance system. Just as a note, that bid was open today. Gotta find my notes on that. So there was one bid received from Barbizon for $137,643. And with And then there would be an additional 10% contingency, bringing it up to 150,000 and some change. Anyway, Barbizon would be the primary and does not meet the apprenticeship requirements. The electrical subcontractor is Helm, which does meet that requirement. The electrical portion of this bid is only $13,037, and Helm was the only electrical contractor that was willing to participate in this small project. The rest of the bid is equipment, lighting equipment, and programming. We have some options. We have the option not to consider this construction, since the cost of the electrical construction portion is less than $25,000 and the rest is equipment. 2, we can waive the requirement of the apprenticeship program. Or 3, we can call it a failed bid, and we need permission from the board to engage in conversation with vendors to see if the electrical contractor is interested in being the primary on this bid.
Question?
Yeah, again, the hardware portion of this is,
All of it is hardware except for about little over $13,000.
And program.
Hardware and programming.
Okay, we move on. Next item.
Is there a thought regarding this from the board?
Are we rejecting?
I got to think about it. So the labor portion of it is really, really small.
Yes, the electrical portion is $13,000, and that would be done by Helm.
Well, yeah. Okay. No, I don't have an opinion on it now. I don't know much what involved in the programming, for it. For example, we've had contracted out for lighting, audio, visual, and the like. And the programming is usually done by the same people who are installing it because they're familiar with it. So it was kind of part of the labor for it because it is labor intensive. So
Barbizon would be doing the programming on the equipment.
Yes, it's a typical parts and smarts. They're the smarts. So,
well, it's not typical for me. I mean, because the vendors I've had to actually install it have been able to do the programming for it. And unlike the Johnson Control one, they sell the system, but they have somebody else install it in the software like that, and with the connections to the HVAC. So I'm just a little confused. And I'm even more confused by a conversation I had with Ellen and I at a MEF, and I'm really kind of anxious to hear about that. It's just not consistent with the building installs I've been involved with for the last 20 years or so. That's
my understanding is in the theater world, there are not a large quantity of people who do theatrical lighting items.
Yeah.
So Barbizon is one of those companies. Theatrical lighting is a specialty. Mm-hmm. And when you get into the specialty realms, a lot of those things have specialized programming that's done by the companies who specialize in it. So the actual construction part of it is nominal for a head-end replacement. Now, when we do phase 2 and we do phase 3, those are going to be actually replacing a lot more of the light fixtures and running conduit and stuff. That we will, I hope, have a Helm or other electrical contractor be the primary, and it's reversed. That's my thought. That's my understanding of it. I am not a theatrical person.
Okay, good enough.
Okay, the last item on the purchase report is, it's a Carasoft Technology Group. This is a TBD on the cost. This expense is for the Zoom video conference platform licenses and service, which provide the virtual meeting, webinars, and virtual room utilization by faculty for online instruction. The college's Zoom licenses will expire on March 1st, 2025, and the expiring licenses pricing structure is no longer offered for renewal. Carasoft Technology Group is now the distributor for Zoom, is working on providing the college with quotes under a new pricing structure. An amount will be identified and brought to the board on February 25th for approval before the licenses expire. To Mr. Gorski's question, he asked about vendors who are distributing. I believe we have identified there are actually 2 vendors that distribute the package we are looking at. I cannot recall the second one off the top of my head.
Okay.
And I have asked the purchasing department to reach out to them.
Okay.
Are there any other questions on the purchase report?
What's the specific package you're looking at?
Yeah, it's educational package, and it's a specific, I think they call it the platinum package. It's very specific.
Okay, it's not a state grant list or anything, or a state purchasing list or anything like that?
Not that they have found.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay.
All right.
Next item, cash and investments.
The next item is the cash and investment report. Operating cash and investments decreased $43,406 from December 31st, 2024 to just under $97.8 million as of January 31. Working cash increased $43,940 due to interest earned on, so the balance is now $2.36 million as of the end of January. Capital funds increased $101,738 to slightly under $23.5 million in January, and total operating cash and investments is 96.14% of operating budget at the end of January. Any questions on the cash and investment report?
Nope.
Your graph looks wonderful on the next page.
Thank you.
It does, doesn't it?
The next item is the second quarter fiscal year 25 financial report and vital signs. Revenues excluding CSRS on behalf are at 66.3% of the fiscal year 25 budget. At this time, all revenues appear to be on track as expected. Expense on the next page. Expenses through December at 43.65% excluding CSRS on behalf compared to budget, and are currently running lower than expected. We still expect a little uptick in the later half of the year when there is more travel and some other things going on that we typically see at the end of the fiscal year. If we go to the auxiliary funds 5, which is on page 7, revenues are at 53.8% of budget, excluding CSRS on behalf. Expenses are at 43.3% of budget, excluding CSRS on behalf. As we move into spring and early summer, the expectation is that expenditures will be increasing as basketball, baseball, and softball teams become more active and Starlight begins to prepare for the summer season, and some other auxiliary programming becomes more active.
But all budgeted.
It's budgeted, yes.
Budgeted.
If we go to the next slide, payroll expense year-to-date for fiscal year 25 continues to track similarly to fiscal year 24 and continues to be below budget. On the next slide,
Excuse me. Do you expect the trend of the payroll to be so far below budget as it is through the first 6 months?
I expect it to continue to be similar.
You expect to be similar through the end of the year?
Yes.
2 million under budget?
Yes.
Okay.
The next item, payroll by month, appears to be following also a similar pattern to fiscal year 24. On the next slide, we talk about healthcare costs. Healthcare costs are running 9.6% over budget and 37.6% over the same period from fiscal year 24. Health insurance utilization for calendar year 2024 ended with a total loss ratio running over at 106.6%. This is due to large claim activity, which may be a lingering result from COVID, when individuals did not see their doctors, and now due to not obtaining that preventative care, medical conditions are not being identified early and are resulting in more expensive and extensive treatments. On the next slide, the year-to-date average per participating employee in December was 38.5% over fiscal year '24. Are there any questions?
No? Looking good.
Also contained in your package this evening for information only is the quarterly purchase report update for items between $10,000 and $25,000. Thank
Any
you.
questions on this report? Hearing none, we'll move into operations. Mr.
Thanks very
Kennedy.
much, Ellen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ellen. Good job.
Greg Jinks to present the operation report.
Thank you, Trustee Kennedy. Good evening, Board. Tonight, the first item on the agenda for operations is the personnel report. We have two items on there. One is the appointment of an Executive Director of Assessment and Accreditation. This individual will be starting March 24th, 2025, and I know Heather is excited to bring him on board. We do have one retirement. Faculty member from the arts profession is retiring effective May 31st, 2025. Any questions?
Nope.
The second item relates to the downtown campus, but it's actually related more to the state and city conducting an improvement of
0.006 acres.
conducting an improvement of Chestnut Street. The state and city are going through and through eminent domain are acquiring small sections, 0.006 acres of land from the surrounding areas so that they can make street improvements on Chestnut. So this is something that we were made aware of. So at 0.006 acres, they're giving us $650, and according to Ellen's math, that equates to about $108,000 an acre if you factored it out. So if you look through the packet, you'll see an exhibit 1 that's got a shaded area. It's a small sliver of land that they want. It's right up there. It's a small sliver of land that they need to round out the corner. We were made aware of this during the PUD process for downtown, but it's not a large quantity of land.
Pretty small piece of land.
And like I said, they're doing it all up and down Chestnut Street.
Okay.
Chair? May I
Yes, sir,
speak?
Paul.
Thank you. So, and this speaks to an item I brought up a few meetings ago, if they're going to actually improve the roads around, and they are. And this is to help achieve that goal. Okay.
Correct.
Great, perfect.
Thank you.
The next item, flip through all the paperwork, is a memorandum of understanding between Rock Valley College and the Rock Valley College Foundation. This memorandum has been in effect since December of 2022. The college obviously works closely with the RVC Foundation, and we have a memorandum of understanding between the two organizations. As a matter of housekeeping, the MOU is to be refreshed, and we're bringing this forward to refresh the MOU that currently exists between RVC and the foundation. The foundation does not wish to propose any changes to the MOU, and we are simply extending the existing partnership for an additional 2 years.
Yeah. No changes. Good.
And you can see the MOU that's there. That would be the same one.
No questions on the orders? Yep.
Yeah,
Paul?
so just a copy and paste, changing the dates of the terms.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's more Ellen's area, but yes.
What?
I said it's more Ellen's area because she does
Okay.
foundation, but yes. The next item that I have is change order updates. We actually have two. The first one is for the Student Center LED lighting upgrade. This is for adding 9, they're called F20 fixtures that were missed in the original assessment inside of the bookstore area. So we're going to add those at a cost of $1,556. This is the first contingency out of this contingency money, leaving us a total of $48,669.20. The project currently is about 95% complete. We may have a couple of other contingency change orders coming in for small items, but I don't expect it to be anything substantial.
Okay.
The next item is for downtown campus. The first two items, bless you. The first two items were already brought before the board. The third item is actually a credit change order. During the course of the erecting, some of the silt fencing for the demolition and other items, it was determined that we did not need as many entrances, and therefore we received a credit of $5,377.27. So for the demolition, that raised the contingency amount to $75,777.24. Any questions on the contingencies?
Any questions? Hearing none?
Looks good.
The next item is the events calendar. I will mention that February is Black History Month, so there's a lot of activities going on that pertain to that. We also have the Regional Mathematics Contest, which will be on February 22nd throughout the entire campus at Rock Valley College. I recommend that if you can come out here and see 1 million kids running around doing math, it's quite impressive, actually. And usually it involves many boxes of pizza boxes everywhere.
Yeah, Paul?
I don't have any questions on that. I was wondering, if this is kind of an operation thing, if you acquired the ground penetrating radar yet?
Yes,
Yeah, we already bought it.
I have seen it.
Okay, you've seen it. So you're going to scan the campus for treasure so we can help pay off those 2025 bonds at the general presentation, at the beginning?
I don't think it works quite that way, but we can try.
All right, thanks.
We could certainly try. The other thing that I do want to mention is actually in March, and we'll be giving you more information. March 27th, 2025, we will have the groundbreaking for the ceremony at the Downtown West Campus, tentatively set for 3 p.m., but we will be sending you updates. I just wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of that.
I presume you're going to invite everybody and everybody.
I'm not in charge of inviting, I'm in charge of building, but I would make that assumption, yes.
What day was that?
March 27th.
27, 3 o'clock.
3 p.m.
Thank you.
Gloria?
Yeah, I'm still trying to remember all the acronyms. On February 13th, there's a Valentine's Day event by CAB. What is CAB?
I have no idea. Patrick?
That is the Campus Activities Board, a student group.
Okay, thank you.
It's all right, I don't remember me either, so.
Okay.
Any other
I just want to make
questions?
sure if it's a party, we know about it.
She wants to go to a party.
Oh, it's a party.
Could you ask her if anything as a party so Gloria could be aware of it?
I'll keep that in
Hey,
mind.
I work for food, so I want cookies.
You could just put like a confetti emoji next to any of them in the future reports just to give her a
Thank you.
cue.
I'll see if we can do that. I'm not sure if
Thank
the
you.
report will print that out. There is also an informational report in there for the 2025 second quarter Human Resources Personnel Report.
Yeah.
There's
Any
no
questions on the
questions?
personnel report?
No questions. That concludes the operations section of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Rick.
All right, good.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you. Good job.
I think I'll just stay up here for old business. That's all right.
Yes.
Do we have any other business, unfinished or new?
Yes, we do.
We do.
So I have 3 items for we're calling old business. One is an update on the SSB roof. We have been working to get quotes on the SSB roof, We've gotten a couple in. We're waiting to get a couple more for evaluation. We will be doing the SSB roof repairs as an emergency. We're concerned that the longer it goes, there will be a greater risk of additional damage and potential further issues. So I wanted to make you aware of that. It's just taking a little time up front to get the pricing and information correct from the vendors. The fire alarm is back functioning. The parts that were broken have been replaced. The price will be in the area of $30,000, so we'll probably come to you for a not to exceed of $30,000 for that emergency fix. And note that we will be looking to replace the entire fire alarm system moving forward, because we also have a panel in the student center that is dying, and we're going to need to replace that right away also.
Paul?
What's your time frame for that?
We're getting pricing right now.
You're getting quotes on replacing it right now, and you're going to come before us for 30 grand not to exceed or something like that to fix it, to pay for the repairs, and you're getting quotes on replacing the entire system. I'm not being critical, I just want to know the time frame.
So the original situation was the original panel in the boiler house failed.
Right.
In the course of trying to fix that, we found another panel in another building, I don't remember which building, that had also failed. So that was the $28,000.
Okay.
After we got all those fixed, they were trying to bring the student center panel back up into the system, and it failed. They were able, after an hour or so of rebooting it and doing things and massaging it, they were able to get the panel to work. So it is currently functioning on its last breath. So now we have to get a price to replace that, and then we will be working to get an overall price to replace all of the panels on campus that have reached their end of life.
So make sure you get something that incorporates AI so it can anticipate emergencies and fires and set off alarms in advance. I'm just kidding, just poking fun at my AI.
So those are two items as far as the SSB roof and the fire alarm. The last item is for the downtown. I just want to advise the board that bid package 5, which is the largest bid package, is out on the streets. It contains 13 different areas, including electrical, plumbing, flooring, and all those parts related to that. We originally were going to open the bid on the 20th. We have moved that back to the 25th because we have been getting a lot of questions regarding the bid, which is a good thing. So we're going to move it back slightly. I will tell you that when the bid package 5 went out, we sent it out to 624 vendors, and there were 213 downloads of the bid package. So we're hoping that there's several interest in that package. So we'll have additional information at the next board meeting. One thing I do want to note, similar to what was discussed earlier with the bonds, there is this whole tariff situation, particularly the one that might be on steel and aluminum. Many of the products and parts, not necessarily the heavy steel, the large steel, that's still typically not imported from other countries. But a lot of the items, electrical panels, a lot of that, they're made of steel, and often that steel does not come from the United States. Right. So at this point, I had a conversation with Ringland Johnson's estimating team. We just don't know. I'm just letting you know. We just don't know what's going to happen with all of these tariffs.
U.S. sources are not available for this type of steel?
My understanding is most electrical equipment, the actual panels and stuff, very seldom comes from the United States. The heavy steel, the big steel, comes from
structural steel from the U.S.,
right.
This pre-manufactured things that require labor to assemble it and bend it into shape or form it in countries that have low steel cost and low labor costs. So.
That's the understanding that I'm getting. Yeah. So I'm just making you aware.
Well, hopefully they'll absorb their own tariffs and bring it in at the same cost. It's been done. The country exporting will absorb some of it, if not all of it.
Potentially. I don't know. It's a world of unknowns right now. I'm just making you
But
aware of our...
at least you're watching it for any cost
We
overruns.
appreciate that, Rick. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. Thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you. Good job.
No more unfinished, new, other business?
We do have new business with
We do have new
CFO
business.
Olson.
We're just switching. Hang on.
I think.
Rick and I are switching spots.
Uh-oh, here we go.
New business, I have 3 items for you this evening. The first is the City of Rockford has asked that we bring to the board a request to join their 2025 property tax program. The property tax rebate program is for the construction of new residential units in the City of Rockford, and in turn rebate the property taxes for 3 years. To support this offer, the city does waive all permit fees, all plan review fees, and water connection fees. And if the housing development is already taking advantage of a city or state funding, the units are not eligible for this incentive. The City of Rockford started this program in 2024. They came to us before. They've had a total of 131 new construction residential units take advantage of the program. This consisted of 71 single-family homes, 8 duplexes for a total of 16 units, and 12 multifamily buildings, which consist of 44 units. This program refunds the participants' property taxes on newly constructed single-family home residents to an owner that occupies the home as a primary residence, or the owner of a newly constructed multifamily residential development. This only applies for property located within the corporate limits of the City of Rockford, within the boundaries of the Rockford School District, and within the boundaries of Winnebago County. We are bringing this to the board to receive input for direction at this time.
What is it they're asking us to do?
They are asking us to join as one of the governmental entities that will rebate the property tax for 3 years.
I don't know if we want to, go ahead, Paul.
Well, I say, any resident or official from Rockford, would you just leave the room for a moment? Because how much was it they were going to charge us to build across our 2 buildings downtown, like 2.5 to reroute that water? You said water fees would be abated for us, so why don't we agree to it and then build across it, and they'll absorb the whole $2.5 million. And then that'll certainly make up for any abatement that we have over the last 3 years. So there you go. Joe, make sure that gets into the contract.
Are you asking
But
us
I
that?
can't see, how much would it cost us to abate for 3 years?
It depends on the property.
Well, it's kind of like a blank check. We
Yes.
don't know what the number is.
Right, we don't know
Are you
how-
asking our opinion? I don't know if we
Yes.
want to get involved with it. No.
But this is for new housing starts, or new apartment starts, or new?
Yes,
Both.
yes.
It's a city program.
I suggest we look at it before.
Pardon me?
Right,
I suggest you look at it before you make a decision.
yeah.
Well, we look at it, but it sounds kind of, to me. We'll look at Gloria.
Didn't we decline this last time?
Yes, you did.
We declined it in the past. I'm
I think
sure.
my thoughts are, I realize that the main campus is here in Rockford, but we do serve other counties. So what if some of the other towns or cities in the other counties came for the same thing? I think it would put us in a pickle. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just
Paul?
my thinking. Thank
Well,
you.
and I agree with Gloria that it may show some type of favoritism, but it may not necessarily, and I agree with Joe that we have to see the details of it and what they project to be the new housing starts, because I've only heard of like 4 new housing developments and townhome within the city boundaries. Most of the development is outside the city. So how many new properties are they really talking about? Because housing starts in Northern Illinois haven't necessarily been gone gangbusters, even though there's a shortage of housing. So does the city offer any suggestion about how many homes they think that this, or residences or whatever, what might?
Not in their communication with us, but we can ask them to provide us projection of new housing starts.
Yeah, I mean, because if we're, then we can kind of get an idea about how much would it actually cost us, so.
I guess I'd like to see the written proposal.
Right.
All of us would see the written proposal. So it's not just a bunch of words, but see what the piece of paper says.
I agree.
We can get that out to you. They've sent us a
Okay, next item?
draft. The next item is the Lee Ogle Enterprise Zone project. So Black Hawk Hills Regional Council, representing the Lee Ogle Enterprise Zone, contacted Trustee Trojan regarding a new expansion project that is seeking to use their property tax abatement incentives in the coming year. HA International, which is an industrial site in rural Oregon. The property has a sliver of territory at the edge of the district in and around Oregon. The base abatement is a 6-year, 50% abatement, and we have a meeting with Andy Shaw from the Black Hawk Hills Regional Council next week to gather more information. We are just bringing it to the board so that you're aware of this, and if you wish to provide any direction at this time.
Well, like you said, we have a Zoom meeting on Monday next to discuss it with him, to get more information before we bring it to the board.
Correct. The last item, just to make you aware that this is coming up and it's for your information, this is regarding the Stellantis Belvedere Assembly Plant. So the Northern Illinois Council of Governments will convene a meeting for all impacted taxing districts to discuss a proposed tax abatement for the Stellantis Belvedere Assembly Plant. At this time, the date and time for the meeting have not been determined. And as a reminder, Stellantis is the largest property taxpayer in Boone County. In levy year 24, the EAV is $20.3 million. And the levy year taxes that RVC received was almost $88,000. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Any questions?
So again, we're going to see something in writing as to what they're
When
talking
they
about?
meet. Like I said, we have not heard when the meeting is.
When it comes, okay. Okay. Just percolating is what you're saying.
Yep, lots percolating.
Okay, anything?
Thank you.
Are we done with, thank you very much, Ellen, for your
Yeah,
new business.
thank you, Ellen.
We do have a closed session. We're going to pipe in Dr. Spearman directly from the Senate House in Washington once we get into the closed session. So going to have a motion for second, please, for closed.
I move to adjourn to closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in the park, recreational, educational setting per Section 2C1. 2, the purchase or lease of real property for the use of public body per Section 2C5, all in accordance with the Illinois Open Meetings Act. I need a second.
Second.
Gorski.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Padilla.
Yes.
Kennedy, yes. Michaels.
Yes.
Soto.
Yes.
Trojan.
Yes. Okay, we'll close the doors, and who do we need in the closed?
We will ask for Terica Huntley, Ellen Olson, Ann Kerwitz, and Attorney Joe Prokowski. We will be, as you mentioned.
taken as a result of the closed. The next Board of Trustees meeting, February 25th, 5:15, meeting we held in the PAR room, Educational Resource Center on the main campus. The next Committee of the Whole meeting, March 11th at 5:15. The meeting will be held same place in the ERC on the main campus. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
The two guys on the edge.
Gorski and Nico.
I have my hand up.
Gorski,
Yes.
Kudia,
Sure.
Kennedy, yes. Michaels.
Yes.
Soltow.
Yes.
Trojan.
Here, yes. Join in.
Motion's carried.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Safe, everybody, tomorrow.
Safe.